There are crimes that shock by their brutality, others that intrigue by their mystery, and there are those that expose something much deeper and more disturbing about the world we live in. The Jeffrey Epstein case is all of these at once. A billionaire financier shrouded in mystery, a fortune of inexplicable origin, connections with the most powerful people on the planet, a private island nicknamed Pedophile Island, and accusations so disturbing they defy imagination. But the story goes beyond the crime. It goes beyond one man. It's about how money buys silence, how power protects predators, how the system repeatedly fails to protect the most vulnerable, and it's about a death that raised more questions than answers. August 10th, 2019, a prison cell in Manhattan. Jeffrey Epstein is found dead. Official cause: suicide. But was it really? This is the complete story. From the shadowy back rooms to conspiracy theories, from forgotten victims to protected powerful figures. And a warning, this is not an easy story to hear, but it's a story that needs to be told. To understand the monster, we first need to know the man, or at least the version he wanted the world to see. The origins. Jeffrey Edward Epstein was born on January 20, 1953 in Brooklyn, New York, son of working-class parents, father a city parks department groundskeeper, mother a homemaker. It wasn't a wealthy family. It wasn't connected. It was ordinary. Epstein attended public schools. He was described as intelligent, especially in mathematics. But there were also reports of arrogant behavior, of someone who from early on believed he was smarter than everyone around him. In 1969, at just 16 years old, he entered Cooper Union, a prestigious New York university. But he dropped out after 2 years. Later, he studied physics and mathematics at New York University, NYU, but again dropped out before graduating. Without a college degree, Jeffrey Epstein entered the job market. The unlikely career. And here begins the first mystery. In 1973, Epstein gets a job as a mathematics and physics teacher at the prestigious Dalton School, an elite preparatory school in Manhattan. How does someone without a degree manage to teach at one of New York's most exclusive schools? The answer: connections. The school's headmaster at the time, Donald Barr, father of William Barr, who decades later would be U.S. Attorney General during Epstein's death, hired him despite the lack of formal qualifications. It was there, at Dalton School, that Epstein began building his network. Wealthy parents, influential families, and vulnerable teenagers, a pattern that would repeat later in much more sinister ways. The financial rise. In 1976, Epstein leaves teaching and enters the world of finance. He secures a position at Bear Stearns, one of the most important investment banks on Wall Street. Again, how? He had no experience. He had no degree. But he had something Wall Street values more than anything: charm, confidence, and the ability to win over wealthy clients. Within a few years, he becomes a limited partner. But in 1981, he's fired for unspecified violations. The bank never revealed the details. His own company. In 1982, Epstein founds his own financial management company, J. Epstein & Co. But there was something extremely unusual about this company. One, he claimed to work only with billionaires, clients with a minimum net worth of $1 billion, an extremely exclusive market. 2. The company operated in total secrecy. Virtually no public presence, no visible offices, no clear records. 3. No one could confirm who his clients were. To this day, only a few names have been revealed, and even then, many deny having been clients. 4. The source of his fortune remains mysterious. Auditors and investigators have never been able to fully explain how he accumulated hundreds of millions of dollars. Theories about his wealth: legitimate wealth management, unlikely given the lack of transparency. Money laundering schemes, blackmail of powerful people, support from even more powerful figures behind the scenes. What we know is, by the 1990s, Jeffrey Epstein was a multimillionaire, heading toward billionaire status, and nobody knew exactly how. With money comes access, and Epstein built access like few others. The material empire. Epstein's wealth was ostentatious. Manhattan Mansion, one of the largest private residences in New York, a 7-story townhouse on the Upper East Side, valued at tens of millions of dollars. Bizarre decoration including a mural of himself in a prison cell, ironically prophetic, and a taxidermied tiger. Palm Beach Mansion, Florida, waterfront property where many of the documented abuses would occur. New Mexico Ranch, isolated 7,500-acre property where he allegedly planned to establish an artificial insemination project to propagate his DNA. Yes, seriously. Paris apartment, luxurious property in the City of Light. Little St. James, the infamous 70-acre private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, nicknamed by local workers Pedophile Island long before the accusations became public. Private jets, including a modified Boeing 727, nicknamed the Lolita Express, due to what supposedly happened aboard. The network of power. But Epstein's real asset wasn't money, it was access. He cultivated relationships with some of the most powerful people in the world. Bill Clinton, former U.S. president. Records show Clinton flew on Epstein's jet at least 26 times. Clinton claims he didn't know about Epstein's crimes. Donald Trump. Before becoming president, Trump and Epstein frequented the same elite social circles in Palm Beach and New York. There are photos and videos of them together at parties in the 90s and 2000s. Prince Andrew, member of the British royal family, would later be directly accused of abuse by one of Epstein's victims. Alan Dershowitz, famous lawyer who defended Epstein, would also later be accused by victims. Leslie Wexner, CEO of Victoria's Secret and L Brands, one of Epstein's few confirmed clients, gave Epstein power of attorney over his multi-billion fortune, something extremely unusual. Scientists and academics. Epstein donated millions to universities like Harvard and MIT, gaining academic credibility and access to brilliant minds. How did he maintain these connections? Various theories. 1. Exclusive parties, events with celebrities, models, political figures, networking opportunities for the powerful. 2. Strategic donations, millions to institutions that conferred status and access. 3. Facilitation, allegations that he connected powerful people with young women. 4. Blackmail, persistent rumors that he recorded people in compromising situations to ensure loyalty and silence. Warning: this section deals with sexual abuse of minors. It will be treated seriously and without unnecessary graphic details. What happened behind the scenes of Epstein's empire was systematic, calculated, and absolutely horrific. The recruitment system. Epstein didn't act alone. He built an abuse machine with multiple components. Recruiters. Young women, many of them former victims, were paid to recruit other girls. The method was always similar. Approach in public places, shopping malls, schools, parks. Promises of easy money, claims of legitimate work, therapeutic massage, modeling. Assistant, amounts between $200 to $1,000 per session. For teenagers from low-income families, It was a tempting amount. The pattern victims were taken to Epstein's mansions, mainly Palm Beach and Manhattan. There, they were taken to private rooms, instructed to give massages, sexually abused, paid, and instructed to bring friends. Recruitment bonus. Many of the victims were 14, 15, 16 years old, some even younger. Ghislaine Maxwell, the facilitator. Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of the late British media magnate Robert Maxwell, was Epstein's closest companion and, according to accusations, his main accomplice. Maxwell allegedly personally recruited victims, gained the girls' trust by pretending to be a mentor maternal figure, organized trips with victims, participated in abuse, managed the logistics of the entire operation. She would be arrested in 2020 and convicted in 2021. The scale: hundreds of victims, over decades, in multiple properties, with the knowledge and participation of employees, pilots, assistants. How did this happen for so long without consequences?
2005. The first reports. A mother in Palm Beach reports to police that her 14-year-old daughter was abused at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. Palm Beach police initiate an investigation. And what they discover is shocking. Dozens of potential victims, systematic pattern of abuse, physical evidence on the properties, consistent testimonies. Police Chief Michael Ryder turns the case over to the Florida State Department and the FBI, expecting severe federal charges. 2006. The grand jury. A grand jury is convened. Evidence is presented. Everything indicates that Epstein will face multiple federal charges of sex trafficking of minors, crimes that could result in decades in prison. But something changes. The deal of the century. Alexander Acosta, then U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, makes an extraordinarily lenient deal. The terms: Epstein would plead guilty to just 2 state crimes, not federal. Soliciting prostitution and procuring prostitution of a minor, he would serve only 18 months, ended up serving 13. He would be registered as a sex offender, immunity for all possible co-conspirators, protecting anyone who helped in the crimes. The deal would be kept secret from the victims, violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. The prison. Even the imprisonment was a farce. Epstein was in a private wing, had work release permission, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, stayed in a private office during that time, not in actual work, received visitors, including young women, had access to phone, internet, catered meals. In 2009, after 13 months, Epstein left prison. The outrage. When the deal leaked years later, the revolt was massive. Why did so much evidence result in such mild charges? Who was protected by the immunity to co-conspirators? Why was a federal case reduced to state level? The most disturbing allegation: years later, when Acosta was appointed Secretary of Labor by President Trump, journalists asked about the Epstein deal. According to the Daily Beast, Acosta reportedly said, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." Acosta denied saying it exactly that way, but confirmed that he received information about Epstein's background that was above his clearance level. What does this mean? Did Epstein work for intelligence agencies? Which ones? CIA? Mossad? And doing what? To this day, there's no clear answer.
For a decade, Epstein lived relatively peacefully, registered as a sex offender, but free, wealthy, and still connected. But the past would catch up with him. July 2019, the new arrest investigative journalism, mainly from the Miami Herald and journalist Julie K. Brown, revived the case. New victims spoke out. Public pressure grew. On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport, New Jersey, returning from Paris on his private jet. The federal charges: sex trafficking of minors, conspiracy to commit sex trafficking, crimes committed between 2002 and 2005, but evidence suggested decades. This time, there would be no deal. Bail was denied. Epstein would remain imprisoned until trial at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, in Manhattan. The expectation. The world expected an explosive trial. Names would be revealed, connections exposed, the entire network unmasked. Victims would finally have a voice. Justice would finally be served. But then, Saturday, August 10, 2019, around 6:30 a.m., MCC guards find Jeffrey Epstein in his cell. He is unconscious, tied in a position suggesting hanging with a bedsheet. Paramedics are called. They attempt resuscitation. Unsuccessful. At 7:36 a.m., Jeffrey Epstein is declared dead at New York Presbyterian Hospital. He was 66 years old. The official version: the New York Medical Examiner's Office concludes suicide by hanging. Case closed. But extremely suspicious circumstances. 1. Suicide watch removed. Just 2 weeks earlier, on July 23rd, Epstein had been found in his cell with marks on his neck, unconscious. Possible suicide attempt, possible attack. After this incident, he was placed on suicide watch, 24/7 monitoring, no dangerous objects, constant checks. But on July 29th, just 6 days later, suicide watch was removed. Why? No one clearly explains. 2. The cameras. Epstein's cell was in an area that should have 24/7 camera surveillance. On the night of his death, both cameras pointed at his cell failed and were turned off. The probability of 2 independent cameras simultaneously failing? Astronomical. 3. The guards. That specific night, the 2 guards responsible for checking Epstein every 30 minutes didn't make their rounds, or sleeping or browsing the internet. Falsified records claiming to have made checks they didn't make were later criminally charged, and eventually had charges dropped under a deal. 4. The cellmate. Epstein should have had a cellmate, standard protocol for high-risk prisoners. But that night, he was alone. His cellmate had been transferred and wasn't replaced. 5. The autopsy. The pathologist hired by Epstein's family, Dr. Michael Baden, veteran who worked on JFK, MLK, O.J. Simpson cases, attended the official autopsy. He publicly disagreed with the suicide conclusion, stating that the fractures in Epstein's neck were more consistent with homicidal strangulation than suicidal hanging. 6. The convenience. Epstein died weeks before he would start naming possible co-conspirators, days before crucial hearings, at the exact moment when more powerful people would be nervous, in a way that ended investigations into third parties. The global reaction. The world didn't believe it. Even people generally skeptical of conspiracy theories admitted, this is too suspicious. The hashtag #Epstein didn't kill himself went instantly viral. Theory 1. It was suicide. Arguments in favor. Official medical examiner concluded suicide. Epstein faced life in prison and public humiliation. He had tried before. Possibly. Wealthy men in prison frequently commit suicide when they lose everything. Counter-arguments. The circumstances are too many coincidences. Epstein was narcissistic, profile less prone to suicide. He seemed confident he would get out or make a deal. Physical evidence suggests otherwise. Theory 2. It was contract murder arguments. Epstein had compromising information about extremely powerful people. His death benefited many people. The security failures were too convenient. History of important witnesses dying mysteriously. Speculated possible instigators. Wealthy individuals he could expose, intelligence agencies, protecting operations, criminal organizations with connections. Theory 3. He's alive. Yes, this theory exists. Some people believe Epstein was rescued by powerful allies, that the body wasn't his, that he's somewhere under a new identity. Why it's unlikely. Autopsies, DNA, multiple pathologists would require massive conspiracy involving hundreds of people. Risk versus reward doesn't make sense. Theory 4. It was allowed to happen. The middle ground theory, it wasn't direct murder, but conditions were deliberately created to allow suicide. Cameras failed. Guards slept. He was left alone. Don't dirty hands, but ensure the outcome. This may be the most plausible. Amid all the speculation about Epstein's death, we cannot forget there are real victims who never obtained complete justice. Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of the most vocal survivors, alleges she was trafficked by Epstein and Maxwell from ages 15 to 19, taken to properties around the world, forced to have sexual relations with powerful men, including Prince Andrew, whom she later sued. Maria Farmer and Annie Farmer, sisters who reported abuse by Epstein and Maxwell in the 90s, long before the arrests, they were ignored. Years later, they testified courageously. Hundreds of others, many who never spoke publicly, who carry trauma, who saw their abuser escape complete justice and then die before really paying. The compensation fund. After Epstein's death, a compensation fund was established for victims using his estate. More than 150 women made claims, but money isn't justice. It doesn't bring closure. It doesn't expose the complete network. With Epstein dead, attention turned to his closest accomplice. July 2020, the arrest. After months on the run, Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested in New Hampshire. Charges: enticing minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, transporting minors with intent for illegal sexual activity, conspiracy to commit sex crimes. December 2021, conviction. After a month-long trial, Maxwell was convicted on 5 of 6 charges. June 2022, sentenced 20 years in prison. She is currently 62 years old. She will likely die in prison. But the questions remain. Did she name others involved? Not publicly. Were there secret deals? Possibly. Was the complete network exposed? Definitely not. Prince Andrew. After Virginia Giuffre's accusations, he was sued civilly. In 2022, he made an out-of-court settlement, undisclosed amount, but estimated in millions. He was stripped of military titles and royal patronages, essentially exiled from public life, but he never admitted guilt. He was never prosecuted criminally. Bill Clinton claims he was never on Little St. James, the island, admits to flying on Epstein's jet, but always with staff and for Clinton Foundation work. He was never charged with anything related to Epstein. Donald Trump, known to have been a social friend of Epstein in the 90s, 2000s. There are records of him making comments praising Epstein. He likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Trump claims he broke with Epstein years before the arrests. He was never charged with related crimes. Others, countless names circulated in speculation. Scientists, CEOs, media figures, royalty, few faced real consequences. The Epstein case isn't just about an individual predator. It's about systems that fail. The legal system, how money buys absurd deals, how the powerful receive different treatment, how victims are silenced and intimidated. The media and society system, how stories were ignored for years, how celebrity connections blind judgment, how money buys reputation. The elite system, how closed circles protect each other, how extreme wealth creates bubbles of impunity, how institutions prioritize donors over ethics. The questions that remain: did Epstein work for intelligence? From which country? Who else was involved? Why did the complete investigation never happen? Are there other Epsteins operating now? 2024. 5 years later, Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. Hundreds of victims received financial compensation from the estate. Documents continue to be slowly declassified. Conspiracy theories persist. The complete truth remains obscured. Ongoing investigations. Technically, investigations into co-conspirators continue. But with Epstein dead and Maxwell imprisoned, it's unlikely we'll see major revelations. Little St. James. The island was put up for sale. No one has bought it yet. It remains as a sinister monument. Legacy. The Epstein case became a symbol of impunity of the super-rich, systemic failure to protect the vulnerable, corrupting power of money and connections. Need for reform in how we treat crimes by the powerful. Jeffrey Epstein was a monster. That's undeniable. But he didn't operate in a vacuum. He had help. He had protection. He had clients. He had beneficiaries. And most of them are still free. His death, whether suicide, murder, or something in between, closed a chapter. But it didn't close the book. Because the book is about something bigger than one man. It's about how our society treats the powerful versus the vulnerable. It's about how money and connections can buy almost anything, including silence, impunity, even truth itself. It's about how systems repeatedly fail to protect those who need protection most. Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but the structures that enabled his crimes, those are still alive and functioning. And as long as we don't confront this, as long as we don't demand real accountability from the powerful, as long as we don't reform systems that protect predators, there will be other Epsteins. That's the most disturbing truth of all. Did this case outrage you? Did it make you question systems of power? Leave your like if you believe cases like this need to be exposed and discussed, not forgotten. Comment. What do you think really happened to Epstein? Do you believe the official version? Who do you think should be investigated? Let's have a serious conversation in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next investigations. We'll continue exposing cases that reveal uncomfortable truths about power, money, and justice. Share this video. The more people know the complete story, the greater the pressure for truth and accountability. And remember, the best way to combat impunity is to never stop asking questions. See you in the next video.